ever go back to the moon, Mr. Hoagland?
Yes, we will. What's
When's
really
that gonna...
astonishing, and the reason I wanted to do a little update tonight, is I've sent over to Lex to be posted on the Coast website an astonishing image taken from orbit. We don't know by whom yet. We're working on that. On the lunar far side, on the opposite side of the moon from the Earth, almost as far away from the Earth as you can get, almost 180 degrees. Almost on the equator, just south of the equator. A mile-sized, each side is a mile, ziggurat. It looks like a Sumerian pyramid. It's extraordinary. It's enormous.
I love it.
You got to go look, because this is just absolutely astonishing. And I've spent now several days trying to make sure this is real. And to the best of our analytical abilities, it's real. There's a whole bunch of little tells around it that tell us, for one thing, hoaxes are never subtle. This is subtle. This is the kind of thing that an expert would instantly recognize, and unless you have trained eyes, it's going to take you a minute or two maybe to see it. But once you see it, you're never going to not see it.
Those words were spoken by Richard C. Hoagland on the Coast to Coast AM radio show that went live on July 20th, 2012. Richard was speaking about a lunar image taken by the Apollo 11 crew in 1969 of the lunar far side, specifically the region around 7 degrees south, 174 degrees east. We can go to the original photograph, as shown here, a high-resolution scan being offered by the Lunar and Planetary Institute. Richard doesn't tell you where on the photograph the alleged ziggurat is, but careful searching by a few dedicated people, including myself, revealed the location as you see here. The rotation is just over 79 degrees. As we go into this region, you can see that there doesn't appear to be anything. That is, until you look at Richard's version, which I've now superposed on the background. Pulling these apart and comparing, there are several differences between the original image and what Richard was presenting on the Coast to Coast site. First, though it may be hard to tell in this due to YouTube compression, Richard's version has more noise throughout the image. This means he's either using a later generation scan, or noise was added deliberately to try to cover things up. Second, the image he shows is darker overall, as evidenced by shadows in the lower left, while the contrast has also been increased, as can be seen by the highlights near the upper middle. Finally, there's the obvious. The ziggurat is not present in the original. It's just craters. No amount of image adjustment nor enhancement will get you a ziggurat there. It must have been added in. Further evidence that it was added in are the shadows themselves. On the moon, there is no atmosphere, and since this was the lunar far side, there was no earth shine. Shadows would need to be pitch black. But the shadows of the ziggurat are clearly not pitch black, but they are illuminated. This is further evidence of image tampering. Hoagland claims that he spent days trying to determine if this was real or not, and that this is a subtle feature. I argue based upon this evidence that Richard is either incompetent to have spent that long on this when an hour's work on my end showed it to be a hoax, and most of that time was actually spent searching for the image in the Apollo photograph. Or Hoagland is a liar. You can make up your own mind. Oh, and just so you know, this particular hoax has been on the internet at least since 2011, possibly as far back as 2003, and yet Richard presented it as his own work, or at the very least he made no acknowledgement that it had ever been presented before. Thank you for watching. This has been a special video presentation by the Exposing Pseudo-Astronomy blog and podcast.